morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where fascinatingly Fox has had now some success with awards season with Deadpool, and it seems that they're going to go for a legit awards campaign from the very beginning with their next X-Men movie, Logan. Is Fox's X-Men franchise going to become an award-friendly franchise? I don't know. I think prior to what's happening with Deadpool, I wouldn't have believed it, but with Deadpool's success during awards season and how good Logan looks so far, maybe Fox might be able to pull it off. That would be quite the revenge after all the harassment they've taken with the give the rights back to Marvel crowd, right? This is an amazing development. So let's go through it. So as we discussed yesterday, Deadpool, in addition to its Golden Globe nominations, now can also count a Writers Guild nomination and a Producers Guild nomination. So crazy. And that means, considering there's so much overlap between Guild voters and Academy voters, that the movie very well could end up with an Oscar nomination for Best Picture and maybe also a Screenplay nomination. Oh, that would be amazing. If Deadpool got a Screenplay nomination, Best Adapted Screenplay from comic books. That would be amazing. Now, I don't think that I don't know if Deadpool is deserving of the mantle of The Dark Knight, but I think that it was so outside the box and such a passion project, and I think had a lot of artistry to it, that I'm going with the narrative. And we're going to talk about narratives with the viewer question today and how they help Oscar campaigns. And I think the narrative with Deadpool is that this is a movie that had a lot of artistic credibility. It was pushed by Ryan Reynolds and Tim Miller. And Ryan Reynolds shaped the ad campaign. It just shows, it didn't do well at the SAG Awards, but I think everybody in Hollywood likes to think, yeah, if maybe the marketing department would listen to me, my movie would have done better. And they can point to Deadpool as an example of that. And the movie took risks. It was a grassroots film, and it was a huge success. And so that's why I think it does. I think that's why it's appealing to awards voters, even though, again, it's not the best comic book movie ever made, in my opinion. And I know a lot of you agree with me, but I'm trying to speak to the few Deadpool hardcore fans who are like, it's perfect, Grace, stop talking about it. Okay. So anyway, this was a surprise for Fox. I mean, they must have run some ads for it, some for your consideration ads, because very rarely is anyone in Hollywood in the voting situation creative. Very, very rarely do they come up with their own ideas for what should have momentum. So I guess on a whim, Fox was like, let's push Deadpool, and it worked. So now, this is how a way awards season works. You get relationships. So now Fox, for their X-Men films, has a relationship with voters. They're doing the screenings, they're doing the interviews, they're doing the mailings, they're doing the for your consideration ads. So they're like, why don't we set Logan up to be an awards contender? And they're doing it. The Berlin Film Festival actually accepted Logan as a film to screen out of competition, next to Trainspotting 2 from Danny Boyle. That's absolutely stunning to me. And also, Fox is so into the idea of Logan being an awards contender that they don't care about the massive spoilers about their film that are going to leak when it was released a month early in Berlin. I mean, do you really think that film festival goers care about spoilers and are going to make an effort to protect them? Methinks not. Also, a ton now of press are going to descend on that screening, and they're going to spill everything as well. So I think that the thing is that that's how important it is to Fox to get some, momentum going here with their X-Men movies, taking risks and being now awards contenders. And I think that's great. If we start awarding risk-taking filmmaking, especially when it works out, as it did for Deadpool and it seems to for Logan, that would maybe encourage more risk-taking with genre filmmaking. And I guess to some degree, giving the franchise to Christopher Nolan, one of the first auteur directors to really take over a franchise and make it also serious, to take it seriously and not feel this was just a paycheck gig or this was a camp gig, was also, out of the box thinking for genre filmmaking. And that was, of course, rewarded with nominations. So I think this is very, very exciting. And it also puts pressure on Deadpool too. But with Logan, James Mangold would be able to, and also James Mangold, if you might recall, Walk the Line. Reese Witherspoon was she was selected to be the big awards winner for that movie, the Johnny Cash film. So James Mangold also has these relationships with Academy voters and voters across the board. So Logan's actually in a great position to be an awards contender. That's amazing. And so look to Logan and see what Fox does with it. I think they're going to really work to make this a prestige release right from the beginning, including debuting at a film festival. And the film festival, it's a win-win situation because that's going to bring a ton of attention that the Berlin Film Festival wouldn't usually get. So kudos to Fox for making these movies, and kudos to them for dreaming that maybe they could be awards contenders, and then once they are, being really smart about making sure the next one is too. So what do you think? Do you think that Deadpool and Logan are deserving of being awards contenders? And what do you think of the idea of a comic book movie, Deadpool assuming the mantle of the Dark Knight, and also that Logan, I'm sure some of you are going to be like, oh, well, other comic book movies get like VFX nominations. I'm talking about the main categories, the ones that make the headlines: picture, screenplay, directing, etc. Not just like, even editing and cinematography I don't really count. I want the ones for the storytelling, right? So that's very exciting. And so do you also think that Logan could be a contender? I think both of them could be, and this is great. I'm very happy. All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now the second story of the day is going to make some other of you happy, and that's the Moana fandom. Moana fandom was very upset when I talked about Moana's box office, performance for the year in the top 10 movies of the year box office report that I did last week. So I wanted to meet you guys halfway and give you a little bit of an update and realistically talk about what Moana's future box office chances are. Because many of you said, hey Grace, cut Moana some slack. It still has a number of countries to hit. So let's get real about what countries it has left, what box office is potentially out there, and what might happen. But the other thing is that they announced yesterday that they're releasing a sing-along version of Moana January 27th. So they're going to squeeze a little bit more out of the box office there. And there's actually a precedent set for this. Talk about precedents. Deadpool setting precedents for Logan. Frozen had a sing-along version released right at the same time, January 31st, 2014, right after Frozen came out. So, and it's also interesting how quickly this is going to be available for you to watch at home. So the sing-along version comes out January 27th, then the digital version of the film is February 21st, and then it'll be available with a physical copy on March 7th. That is pretty fast turnaround, and that window is shrinking all the time. They're trying to get it down to 2 weeks. So anyway, let's see how much money the sing-along. I think because again the soundtrack hasn't been huge, I don't see a lot of people paying extra money at that point to go with the sing-along version at any real numbers. So anyway, Moana is now up to number 15. It was number 18 when we discussed it in the box office report for the year. So it's up to number 15. It has 450 million total, 225 in the United States, 224.7 overseas. It's already hit China, and it only made 32 million in China, interestingly enough, and it's been playing there since November. So there's no more money coming out of China, and that was one of the big pockets. So it only has a couple of countries left, and of those countries that could deliver potential box office of any substantial amount are South Korea and Japan. And Frozen did, let's see, okay, I'll tell you right now. Frozen in South Korea made 76 million when it was released there, but Japan was the big one. It was just a sensation in Japan. Frozen made 249 million there, more than it did in China. That's absolutely amazing. So hopefully Moana will be, even if it's even half a hit, that'll be huge for them in Japan. So those are the two countries that it has left that could contribute significant box office. So it's currently at 450. It's going to pass Wreck-It Ralph, which is 471.2 for its worldwide total. And as many of you pointed out, that was awarded a sequel, but it took a really long time. And I think part of that was a reward to Rich Moore for his work on Zootopia. They were like, okay, let's do Wreck-It Ralph. Clearly you know what you're doing, so take another crack at Wreck-It Ralph. And I'm sure Rich Moore campaigned for it hard. He's one of the co-directors on Zootopia. But I think it's going to be hard for Moana to catch Tangled, unless it's a big hit in Japan. Because Tangled is at 591.8, so that would mean over 100 million Moana would have to still add. And to catch Big Hero 6, it would have to add 200 million, because that's at 657.8. I think it would have been ideal for Moana to end with something above 700. And I think that, Disney Animation will certainly be aiming for that going forward. They actually don't have a lot of movies on the horizon. They just really have Gigantic, which is interesting. So D23 is coming up this year. They have it every other year. So expect D23 to have some interesting announcements probably about what else is on their Disney Animation slate going forward. All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now for the third story of the day, I was going to cover the new head of DreamWorks, the new CEO. We'll talk about that tomorrow, because there's a story that actually really captured my heart, and I was like, I got to talk about this. So George Lucas wants to have a museum. and he's giving $1 billion to build it. And it was down to Los Angeles and San Francisco, and he went with Los Angeles. So this is what's great about it, though. Not that he's giving $1 billion museum to Los Angeles, although outside of the Getty, they are kind of low on museums. If you're ever in Los Angeles, the Getty is a really nice museum. It's on a hilltop. You have to take a tram to it. It's really cool. But this Lucas Museum is going to be amazing. But what I really love about it, and why I had to cover it, was because it's going to be called the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. Oh, okay, so it's going to have a bunch of his memorabilia for making his movies, and it's also going to have some traditional art. But I like the idea of art, particularly that tells stories, narrative art, and also the idea of filmmaking as art, that storyboards would be art, and, photographs, from set, would be art. I think that's so great. I would love to see exhibits about big artistic films, big and small, that highlight the storyboards, the concept art. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And Los Angeles, of course, is a perfect place for it. So just like with Logan and Deadpool doing so well with awards voters, I love this idea of highlighting the artistry of big film, and of course small film too, but that gets a lot of attention as it is. But if George Lucas could contribute that to like Hollywood and society and a museum that celebrates, like, just think about like a Mad Max Fury Road exhibit, right? Like, and also they could show costumes. Fashion has been big example for the Metropolitan Museum of Art here in New York City. So, to just really play that up would just be so wonderful. And that would be such, again, a wonderful contribution, far greater than the $1 billion that's paying for it. But to contribute that kind of viewpoint and something for people to go and appreciate that, oh wow, I would go there for sure. I'm definitely going to go there when it opens. I think it's just such a fabulous idea. To be fair, the Museum of Modern, the MoMA works very hard to promote film, but not this hard. They'll screen a couple of films and they'll do little tiny things. But this is just really exciting. A whole museum, dedicated to narrative film. I just think that's spectacular. All right, so let's get to the viewer question. I feel horrible. I took the person's viewer question because they wrote it as a picture, but I didn't take the name. Ah, crap. I apologize. If you're going to give me a viewer question on Twitter that's a screen grab, please put your name in the screen grab of the, in the text, because this is what happens. But it's a great question. All right, so I'm sorry. This BTT viewer said, you talk a lot about how when movies are campaigning for their awards consideration, they need to have a narrative in the campaign promotion, just like we were talking about with Deadpool and Logan. Does it have to be absolute truth or exaggerated? Well, all campaigns are. Select truth, and also, what are some of the best campaign narratives that have been used for past award contender movies that paid off? Love your videos. You always cheer me up, along with my twin brother, who I finally got to watch and subscribe to your channel. Victory! Thank you. Hello to both of you. I can see your avatar in my mind. Thank you. I'm so frustrated. I apologize. All right, so anyway, great question. So here are a couple of the past things that have worked in terms of narratives for awards campaigns. Now, as we're seeing this year, it's hard to beat a movie that's about Hollywood itself, right? The Artist, Argo, which was about Hollywood saving, the CIA couldn't do it, but Hollywood could, Ben Affleck's movie. And now, of course, La La Land. Now, something else that's helping La La Land is they're like, oh, it's bringing back the musical. I think that's been a big narrative for it. And also, Tom Hanks got the ball rolling very early, where you might recall he interrupted his own press conference for Sully earlier this year and said we need to support movies like La La Land or they just simply will not continue to be made. So I think that at that point everybody thought it would help the box office, but I think that really helped shape the narrative for La La Land, and Tom Hanks is directly responsible, I think, almost for casting it as a special film that needs to be seen. Because who would interrupt their own press conference for a movie? It's amazing. Then also another popular narrative is the it's time narrative. Like Jeff Bridges, Alan Arkin, they've been working for so long, it's time for their work to be recognized, right? Then also there's the paid your dues argument. This was for J.K. Simmons and also Mark Rylance. Oh, they've been working actors for a long time. And also there's so many actors who aren't particularly successful who manage to get into the Academy, who vote, that they feel a kinship with the actors who worked for decades, as working actors with really no recognition, no fame. And then when they break through, that's really compelling to the people who are like, oh, that could be me. So that gets a lot of votes. Also, ingenues, when it comes to women, are huge. Natalie Portman, Jennifer Lawrence, Anne Hathaway. They always like to go for like some young actress that they want to anoint. That's going to help Emma Stone this year. Also, deglamorized. Emma Stone is also deglamorized in La La Land. When you think about it, this thing's really well constructed from an Oscar, awards campaign narrative, right? So, because, she didn't wear as much makeup, she darkened her eyebrows, so she didn't go for the glam look, right? So she's like, I shouldn't have dyed my hair platinum blonde for Birdman. No wonder I didn't win, right? So she remembered this year, go with the redhead, go with the darker eyebrows. But past deglamorized winners have been Halle Berry for Monsters Ball, Nicole Kidman when she played Virginia Woolf, Charlize Theron for Monster, and even Christian Bale for the Fighter, as you might recall. Then also, something else is momentum. Just if you get enough wins early on from all like small awards shows and the critics associations, people almost feel like, why waste my vote for somebody else? This is who's winning, right? I think Casey Affleck has that kind of momentum at this point. He just won everything early on. And so now I think it's between him and Ryan Gosling for Best Actor when it comes down to the Oscars. Now, there are occasional exceptions, like when Sean Penn won over Mickey Rourke or Mark Rylance won over Sylvester Stallone. And also you'll notice that Mickey Rourke and Sylvester Stallone are both outsiders, so they just couldn't quite pull it off when it came to the Oscars, which is really the whole town voting. And of course, Sean Penn and Mark Rylance. Well, Sean Penn is an insider, and Mark Rylance worked very, very hard, to campaign not only for himself as he went to all the screenings and he was really nice, and everyone just said he was such a sweetheart. But also he worked so hard to support Bridge of Spies. People talked about that a lot. That he was like, when I do anything, Steven Spielberg, to help the movie, just let me know. So I think that was one of the reasons that he won. Also, there are always topics that everybody loves, in addition to Hollywood. Slavery, the Holocaust, although I think both slavery and the Holocaust might have worn themselves out at this point. Although never say never. Also, if you play a real-life person, for instance, when Meryl Streep played Margaret Thatcher, or Forrest Whitaker in The King of Scotland, right? And then also anything about the LGBT community. In fact, Sean Penn credited his win for Milk over Mickey Rourke and The Wrestler because of, he even said, I think he said like Hollywood loves its gays, right? When he came up there, because, he was so shocked that he won. And so there's tremendous support for those kinds of stories as well. I was just thinking Eddie Redmayne did not win for the Danish Girl, but that's because of course he'd won one prior already for Stephen Hawking. But anyway, a real person. So you can also disability, you think about My Left Foot with Daniel Day-Lewis, just as moviegoers are predictable, so are Academy voters. When we predict the box office, you can really kind of construct. Occasionally lightning strikes and there's something that nobody expected, but overall, and that's why they're trying to change the votership for the Academy, because it's so predictable and they're so stuck in their ways. So maybe in a couple of years, they'll be able to transform the Academy, but right now, this is what works. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please write down below, I think, today's top 3 stories. The viewer question, again, please, I'm so sorry, please include your name in the screen grab. I was so excited about the viewer question, I just took it and I didn't get to write the name. And then, of course, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.